Council Action. I'm Russ Inman, and joining us tonight from Ward 3 is Council President Joe Eagan.
Good evening. How are you today, Russell?
I'm doing great.
Did you have a good New Year's, I hope?
New Year's was very nice. It was, it's not the partying days for us, obviously, but it was good to kind of welcome in a new 2016, and I sure hope it's a good one. We had so much negativity that came through in 2015 with shootings in St. Louis, and I'm really hoping for a good, positive 2016, something to turn around.
As we all are. We hope that we have a nice New Year. It's good to get back after the holidays and try to get back in the legislative mode and keep moving the city in a positive direction.
Very good. Well, let's talk about the first meeting of the year. Started off as a very quick one. The first public hearing was closed out. It was, I guess, withdrawn by the petitioner. This was for Kingdom Fellowship Hall and wanting to operate a child daycare there.
Right, that's up on Lindbergh in a vacant building right now, and we had met numerous times with the petitioner. We had issues with some of the aspects of his plan on the daycare as far as where he would accommodate state law with a recess area. It was actually going to be in a driveway. So we met with him, and he's agreed that that's probably not the best plan. He's going to move forward in some talks with the landlord and come up with an alternative plan. We'll see that probably next couple months.
Second reading that was brought up today. This is the ordinance for the qualified voters. This is going to come to the vote in April regarding the city to continue applying a sales tax to motor vehicles purchased outside of Missouri. This is changing from what was being known as Prop V to Prop B.
Yes, this is a tax that we have been collecting and currently collect now, but in order to do so, we've got to have an approval from the voters, as was probably spoken about last time on council action. What we did tonight was we merely changed the proposition letter. And we did that, we went from V as in Victor to B as in boy, because we wanted to be consistent with what all the other municipalities around us seem to be favoring B for some reason. I don't quite know, but in order to make sure that there would not be confusion to the voters, not only in our community, but this is going to be on the ballot in many, many communities in April. And so all the communities want to be consistent, and that's why we changed it to B as in boy.
Okay. And we'll see that in the April 5th election.
Yes, sir.
We had requests for special use permit for Xing Dong Chinese restaurant to Yang Enterprises. That request was approved tonight.
Yeah, and that's just merely a change of ownership. So nothing about the business is going to change. Same menu, same food. Just different people have taken it over, and so that's pretty standard. What we will do is a change of a special use when that happens.
And after that request was approved, there was a bill for first reading on the same subject.
Yes, and that I anticipate will go for second and third readings at the next hearing. I imagine that's going to pass.
We had an ordinance appointing 9 registered voters to a redistricting commission.
Right. We are taking a look at the way at our districting for our wards, and so we are going to form a committee of citizens and ask them to take a look at the manner in which we're doing it now and the actual ward makeup we have, and to, if need be, redraw the boundaries. Okay. And that's something that's going to happen more as we get through this year. This is the first part of the process.
If it is determined that the boundaries will be redrawn, I mean, what is the process involved in that?
We normally do this every 10 years, but by looking at some of the data, we wanted to stay current. So the commission will take a look at it. They'll get accurate data from St. Louis County. They'll sit down, and they want to try to keep the wards as geometrically even as possible, including things such as natural boundaries, such as waterways or creeks, what have you, as well as streets. We don't like splitting residential streets down the middle if we don't have to. There may be some times that we have to do that where there's no other options. And all at the same time trying to balance the number of people in each ward.
Sure.
And that really changes. Well, it changes all the time. But if we can get to a consistent number of approximate people in each ward where we want to go, and that's going to be more prevalent as we move into spring and early summer. We'll get that done. They'll make a presentation to us. We'll decide if it's the needs of the council and the needs of the city, and if so, we'll put it on as an ordinance.
Okay. Well, Joe, the next part is where the meeting took a turn and got a little bit longer. There was some audience discussion that came up. This is ordinance submitting to qualified voters of the city of Florissant for their approval of the general municipal election, again coming the 5th day of April, a proposition to authorize the city to increase the fee for a rental license to $50 per unit. And what it is currently is $15 just for the business license to have rental properties within the city limits.
You know that the council has explored this prior to my coming on the council 4.5, almost 5 years ago. This has been a topic. Currently, to be real clear, that if you own rental properties in the city of Florissant, whether you have one property or you have 500, we charge you $15 for the ability to rent property in town. What this is going to do, and looking at the cost that the city incurs on rental properties, currently we estimate that each rental unit costs the city in paperwork and inspections and that type of stuff, clerical work, every year $50 or $100, excuse me. So we've not been even coming anywhere near breaking even. What this will do, this will help us absorb some of the costs that we go through every year in licensing people who rent units in our town, which is, there's some that can be problematic. Some of the out-of-state landlords, out of the area landlords, don't necessarily take care of their property. This will help us make sure we have all the rental properties identified, number one. And number two, it is a fee increase, but it's important to know that we have not increased this fee in 18 years. And when we look to cities around us, we are way off the grid. We're way below what cities around us are charging for the same thing that we're doing. So we're hopeful. We know that our residents, one of the biggest complaints that council people receive every week, every day, is regarding rental units. And this is a step in the direction we want to go regarding rental units. It's important to know that we aren't picking on anybody. We know that in 2008, a lot of good people lost their homes and had to go into rental units and no longer could own their home. They lost it, they had to go into rental homes. This in no way targets those folks. As a matter of fact, my favorite story is a family down the street who lost a home in St. Charles in 2008 when the crisis hit. They moved into a rental unit down the street. They could afford it. It met their needs. And very, very, very happy that 3 months ago they were able to buy another house, and they did it in Ward number 3. They moved right down the block. This is in no way to target and impact renters in a negative way or a targeted way. One of the gentlemen come up and said this is profiling. That's absurd. That is absolutely absurd. We're not targeting anyone. We want to make sure that we put a lot of money into regulating, monitoring, evaluating rental units. This is a way for us to help recoup some of that money that the entire city is bearing right now. Whether you own a rental unit or you're a renter or whether you're a private homeowner, you're incurring these costs. And this is a way to spread it out a little bit more. Again, this is a Hancock Amendment. This is going to the voters. We are putting out there. We think it's a good idea. We think it's the first step in making sure that the landlorded properties, the rental properties, and again, many of our complaints stem from rental properties that aren't kept up, that aren't well, that the landlord does not vet their tenants very well or monitor them. This is the first step in that process, and we're hopeful by summer, certainly by spring or summer, that we'll have step 2 or phase 2 in, and we can continue to improve the city. And this eventually is this impacts our property values without any doubt. The impact on a rentor, a landlord, is minimal. It's going to be $4.17 a month per unit. That's a very, very minimal impact. But we think that it's time that we proceed in this direction, give the voters the opportunity to decide whether they agree with myself and the other members of the council, if they want to begin really to address certain issues in the city with rental properties. This is step number 1.
And Joe, if residents want to understand this more, understand the cost impact that is related to Florissant and what they're trying to recoup here, Who should they reach out to? Should they reach out to their direct council person?
You know, I always say anytime you have a question, reach out to your council person. However, I can assure you that the city is going to have several town hall style meetings as we go get closer to the election, where we can make sure that if you have a question about this, it's answered before when you go in there and close the curtain behind you, that you know what you're voting for. And we believe that when people get the information and see the information, even those who live in rental units will support this.
Well, I think, you know, in the business world, you always have to look at what are your costs before you're going to sell something to somebody. You got to make sure that you cover your costs first. Florissant's starting to do that, yet you're still coming short. Why not do the full 100?
You know, as was pointed out, we're going from a $15 a year registration fee to a $50, which is pretty dramatic. And that's a big jump. Again, we haven't done this in 18 years. It hasn't been addressed. Like Ms. Pagano pointed out to the gentleman who was complaining, you know, the landlords have had a pretty good run. They've had a great run of extremely unbelievably low. And again, this in comparing with our neighbors and other cities, we're off the charts low. So again, I think that this is fair. I personally asked the committee, I said, why are we going to $50? Why not go to 25, make it softer? And then some people said, actually, we should go to $100. But I think that this is, when you break down on what it's going to cost, assuming that is passed on to a renter, assuming that you're living in a rental house and it's passed on you, it's $4.17 a month, and that's pretty nominal over a year. And secondly, there are going to be some exemptions in this, and this will come out in the public hearings or in the public meetings for people who, let's say, rent to a child or a grandchild. There'll be exemptions that they won't incur this fee.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that explanation. The next one is also to come up for that April ballot. This is a $200 fee to be charged to the owner of a property that has an improvement on it, a home, a dwelling, that has been vacant for 6 months or longer.
Sure. You know, both of these bills had to go through 3 readings this evening because we have to get these on the ballot before the next council meeting. So we didn't have the luxury of going to 2 different sessions. Although they had both been explored in depth for many, many years, and the committee looked at, the council committee with Mr. Siam and Mr. Jones and Ms. Pagano explored these heavily the last 6 months. We just, by the time they got everything where they felt comfortable, we just had a bit of a rush. You know, one of the issues we have in the city is vacant homes. And right now, currently, we have on the ordinance books that if your home is vacant and not up to code, then we charge you a fee, a re-inspection fee every 6 months. And the problem is some of the homes we have in our city have been bought by out-of-state people, bankers. They're investors is what they are. They're speculators. There's one in my ward that I jokingly call the worst house in the ward, and the people who live around it absolutely can't stand this house. They bought it on a tax sale. The owners have never been here, don't intend to come here, and the only thing they're doing is incurring losses while the city of Florissant cuts the grass and maintains routine exterior maintenance on it. Their hope now is to recoup their losses. I don't think on some homes you can. We know we already have that covered. What we don't have covered are the homes that are in code that are vacant. And we know that when you talk to our chief of police and people in the area, even if a home is complying with code and it's vacant, it still becomes a problem. It can become a haven for people who want to hang out there. And if the kids find out in the neighborhood because they see the newspapers on the driveways. It invites people to do house burglaries where, as Mr. Lee said today, where people will get in and try to steal copper and other precious metals out of houses that are vacant. So what this does is, and most of the banks in the country are aware that most cities have this type of ordinance. So what this does is bring these vacant but code-compliant properties also in under the ordinance and helps us to recoup some of our inspection fees and such.
So if an individual registers their home as a vacant property, will the police then do extra policing of that property? Is that part of what that expense is helping?
Not per se as per the ballot measure, but yes, this will be the first measure we've ever undertaken to document every vacant home. And as we get through this process, it's my belief that we will probably get somewhere around 90 to 99% of the homes that are vacant we'll find out about. And again, it's this is for instance, directly behind me, there's been a house that's been vacant for 8 years. And the city has, and other than the grass, the city has cut the grass there every summer for the last 8 years. But the person who speculated on it had no motivation to try to move that. The big thing is they want to wait until, quote unquote, the market comes back, whenever that happens. Sure. They've had no motivation. This is now motivation to move that house and to put human beings in it, which we know is better for the neighborhood.
Okay. We had an ordinance authorizing acceptance of ownership assignment of real estate properties held in St. Louis County Collector revenue through collector's deed. One reading on that tonight.
That's one reading, and what this does is these next two ordinances, I can cover them in one.
Okay.
They basically, there are some households, like a couple I've just mentioned, that eventually get sold at the tax sale. They're vacant, the people have delinquent on their taxes, or way behind their taxes, and so the county has to sell them out on the courthouse steps, so to speak. There are some that aren't going to sell because of the condition. They've been vacant for so many years. They've run down. They've had some structural problems, and what these two ordinances will allow us to obtain certain properties from the county free of charge, where the city can obtain the title or the deed to the home, and then we can put them out to bidders to come in and fix them up. You know, the ideal situation is, we've had a couple of these have happened over the last couple of years where we get the property, we have someone can make improvements on it, and then they end up selling it, and it's inhabited. That's what we want. This helps us to have a little more control over that.
Okay.
And that's both of these. And we have, I think there's 5 or 6 properties coming up this year, the tax sale, that we anticipate won't be speculated upon and would then fit this bill.
And the county will just pass those over to Florissant, and you've got the control of
Then we have,
who
yes.
does what to them.
We can put the bid out for them, and we can sell them the highest bidder. But when we sell them the highest bidder, it's on condition that they have to bring the property up to code within a set amount of time.
Do you put a condition in it that they have to inhabit the property within a certain
No,
amount?
they do not. They do not have to inhabit the property. They have to bring the property up to
Just bring
code.
it up to code.
And then the idea is, and it's, I believe one happened in Ward number 1 already. It was brought up to code, and it was sold, and there's humans living in it now, which is
Okay.
fabulous.
That's better than rodents living in it.
It is.
Okay, well, that's it for the meeting. Council announcements, the first thing that comes up at most meetings is Neighborhood Watch.
You'll always hear every councilman on this dais talk about Neighborhood Watch, because we know that it is the single most effective tool that the police officers in our community have to keep us safe, is Neighborhood Watch. As a police officer myself, when I was working burglary detectives, the first thing we did when we had a burglary, we go to the residents and say, who is a nosy neighbor? Who's a Gladys, if you will, in the neighborhood?
Right.
And they'd point out Gladys, we go talk to Gladys. And we know that people are very, very in tune to what's going on around them. It's not only out of curiosity, but for their own personal safety and well-being. And so we know if we have, on the block, we have people watching out those windows and making note if someone knocks at the door and asks for someone who doesn't live there, or see suspicious vehicles, or vehicles that are necessarily suspicious that don't belong there. Those are the phone calls that our police department love to get. And 99% of those phone calls are nothing. It's a relative who came and visit. But it's that 1% where that if you will, that curious neighbor reports something unusual or suspicious, that we're able to take burglars into custody. So you know, we really believe that Neighborhood Watch. I've been very fortunate since I've been on council. We've started 4 new Neighborhood Watch programs in Ward number 3. One of them is extremely vibrant. They have they meet regularly and have a annual picnic, which is just a hoot to go and hang out on a Sunday afternoon in a very low-key setting. And these Neighborhood Watches can be, it's what you make them. It can be as simple as communicating with each other in maybe a 10-household square area, or as I guess the good folks up on Laven, in the 1800 block of Laven, they get together. They have great barbecues and great parties, and that's a more intense Neighborhood Watch. But it's what fits the particular group of neighbors, because there's some that maybe aren't as as social and want to stay themselves, but they still want to be involved in the safety of the community. So I highly urge you that if you're in Ward number 3, get a hold of me or get a hold of your council person in your ward and get involved in Neighborhood Watch. You're going to hear that probably at every council meeting, and it's simply because we know it works.
Joe, what else is going on in Ward 3 right now?
You know, Ward 3, like I said at the in my council comments, it stopped raining. We got a lot of rain, and we know that throughout the city we had neighbors who had water problems. They got water in their basement, they had backups in their basement. And that's really the biggest thing that's going on, not only in my ward, but in the entire city, is people trying to recover from those water tables that just overwhelm the system. Again, the Red Cross has a program, and National Guard's been picking up debris. So if you have questions about that, give myself or City Hall a call, and we can go through that. Other than that, we are in what I call the winter blahs. It's we're done with the holidays, and we're not quite ready for the festive season of spring with all the parades and the Valley of Flowers and the summer and all the events that go on. So we're in kind of a lull right now, but rest assured, in just a few months, the activities start picking up again.
That's right. Well, Joe, we appreciate your time and going through the meeting with us tonight. All that you do for the city is appreciated.
Thank you very much. Always good to see you, Russ.
Thanks, Joe. And thanks for watching. I'm Russell Inman. You've been watching Council Action. We'll see you next time.